Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Business Builders Podcast. My name is Tom Borg, and I'd like you to welcome our guest, Mr. Marc Perry. Marc is President and CEO of Advantage Communications Incorporated. Marc?
Hi, Tom. Thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity to sit here and get a chance to chat with you today.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Marc, tell me a little bit about your background, a little bit about your company, so our viewers can learn about you.
My background has really been about marketing from the time that I picked up my degree and started my career with General Motors. And over the last 30 plus years, I've had the opportunity to work in advertising specifically and work with Fortune 500 companies and helping them produce advertising. Then Advantage Communications is just a 2-year-old company that I have acquired, but the company has been around for about 20 years. And it specializes in marketing, advertising, and public relations. And what we do is provide those services to companies that want to have a competitive edge versus their competition. And we do that in also providing them expressing their social impact in the communities that they serve as well. So we try to look for where we can help make a difference with the products and services that we're helping to market.
Sounds great. So, Marc, today I want to talk about a topic that you're an expert on, and that is recession-resistant marketing. What is that, and why is it so important today?
Well, it's certainly something that we hear about almost on a daily basis, that this approaching recession is coming. And before we dive into that, maybe we should just take a look at what does a recession, what does that mean? How is that defined? And in fact,
Right.
so that I don't flub it, I have something right in front of me here. The
Mhm.
definition of a recession is defined as a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced, generally identified by a fall in GDP or gross domestic product in 2 successive quarters. But once we define that, okay, it was 2 successive quarters, and we're hearing about the recession that's coming. It's not if it's coming, but the question is, when is it coming? And most economic forecasters are predicting that it's going to be here April or spring of 2023. So resistant recession marketing is, how do you market your company, your business, your products, your services in a market that's declining? What do you do? First of all, you don't run away from it. You actually want to continue in terms of planning and putting together a plan and really reassessing your whole marketing efforts and what you're going to do to remain relevant in the marketplace. Because what particularly happens is that when you pull back, and I can remember in my early years of working in the automobile business with Chevrolet, one of the first things that I heard about during the recession, that was back in 1975, was that you can't save your way into a product. You can't save your way to a profit. And so you don't want to really pull back. You want to just assess how to spend your funds. And what typically happens is that you're able to actually grow your market share during a down market. And during these recessions, everybody's not going to have a down market anyway, because some people are going to benefit from it. There's all kinds of situations that happens in our marketplace that creates opportunities for others and impedes it for others. For example, just this past pandemic that we just went through, there were a lot of companies that suffered a lot, but there were some that came out of it with shining colors. I mean, you look at Zoom, for example. Zoom was being used, but not nearly to the extent that it's used now, or particularly during the pandemic. And then, as you went through the grocery store, you couldn't find toilet paper because it was selling off the shelves. You couldn't find disinfectant because it was selling off the shelves. So, there's opportunities that happens when markets go up and down.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is so true. The examples you were giving us. So how should a business look at this opportunity, if we want to call it that, with this potential recession looming? What can you do to position your company to be in a better place?
Yeah, well, first of all, is taking a look at your budget. Okay, so not necessarily pulling back, but the allocation of how do you spend it, where do you spend it, what channels that you want to spend it in. Maybe you're on television and maybe you pull off television and you go to radio, or maybe you pull back on television and you increase it online. So you want to be able to take a look at where they're going to get the most maximum bang for the buck. Because what's going to also happen too is that those companies that stay in the market are showing signs of leadership and signs of strength, that consumers will gravitate back to them once their money gets back in their pockets. They're going to remember who stayed top of mind on them to continue to go back and serve and help get business from them as well. So those are the first things that you want to take a look at that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other things that you can do is look at your message. What is it that you're saying? Is it relevant in terms of what's going on in the marketplace? Is it emotionally engaging in terms of your consumers? You
Mm-hmm.
also want to focus on your customers, not necessarily new customers, but existing customers. Those are your best source of business, because those are the people that are going to buy your product. They're going to use your product. They're going to tell other people about a product, which are prospects are going to bring back to you. So you want to continue to look toward leveraging existing customers. If in
Mm-hmm.
fact that, and the other part is during a recession, you may have a product that's of a necessity, which obviously then you're not going to have too much of an issue. But if you have a luxurious product or something that people don't necessarily need, you may want to take a look at what your offer is, to twist your offer in terms of making it more of a necessity of using that particular product or service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So to look at what you mentioned a very important point there. Your present customer base can be the most valuable resource you have. And to look
Absolutely.
at that rather than advertising to the universe, focus in on who already knows and uses your product or service.
It's targeting your consumers. It's target marketing. It's
Mm-hmm.
really understanding who that customer is. And then as you identify who they are, when we start talking about the messaging, one of the things you want to do is to test your messaging. You want to go to consumers and talk about in focus groups, people close to you, being able to bounce off what this campaign is, the advertising that you're going to use to make sure that it's speaking to the right audience and it has the right appeal to them as well. So your copy is extremely important in terms of what it is that you're saying. It's important to what channels that you're using. And it's also important to the tone that you're using, because you don't want to be tone deaf in a recession as well. So you want to be empathetic to what the market conditions are. So you sound like you're in tune and on target with what your messaging is.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the ways a business can do that?
Well, one of the ways of the testing is focus groups. I mean, you hold
Mm-hmm.
focus groups and you have your advertising campaigns brought in and you go through the focus groups with them. I always found that fascinating when we would do focus groups of when you're taking these ideas that you came up with
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the night or during some sessions, and you had your art directors come and make it more visually appealing what this is, and then to see a reaction to what consumers, how they see it through their lens.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, this is just all things that we're just projecting.
Mm-hmm.
You get a chance to hear them respond to what you're saying, to what something looks like on screen, then you're fine tuning your message and you're hedging your bet, if you will, in terms of coming up with a campaign that's going to penetrate, that's going to create sales traffic. And the other part is of having a strong call to action. What is it that you want the customer to do? Do you want them to go to your website? Do you want them to click a button? Do you want them to order right now? So you want to make sure that's clear. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is that your messages should also be very clear and concise, because the more that you give information out and more complex you make it, you're going to push customers away. You're making them work too hard to figure out what it is that you're trying to sell.
Mm-hmm. Mark, you mentioned that word focus groups. Now that means some certain things to certain people. How would you define a focus group?
Well, for example, if we were going to present a campaign of the Ford Edge,
Mm-hmm.
we would look at who the target customers are, and then we would look at what area in the country we'd want to go and talk to these women. I said women because I'm thinking about the actual campaign that we once did is that we went to Washington, D.C., and we were looking for women buyers or target consumers that would buy a Ford
Hmm.
Edge, something in that same category of its competitors. And we would invite them out to a secured location where we would actually look behind a two-way mirror, and they would be in a little conference room.
Hmm.
Uh, they would be a facilitator would show them an ad campaign, would explain how it works, and then would ask them questions about it, about the campaign. And then from that, there would be the facilitator would go in and look at the tapes, look at their notes, the things that were taken, and make an assessment of what the reaction was for the consumer, for that focus group. And
Hmm.
some other focus groups is that it could be a phone call where you call and poll consumers about a particular product that they just saw on television, that maybe there was a campaign during the Super Bowl. And here's another point in terms of a campaign is you want to make it memorable. And I said Super Bowl because a lot of times those are the most expensive campaigns that have ever put out.
Hmm.
A lot of creativity, and people are talking about it for days, a lot of it because of the humor factor that goes forward. And so you would ask questions about, in terms of what's resonating to you in the ad. So you
Hmm.
do it that way. There's ways that you could do it from people looking on and just from selecting off a list of comments and doing a check mark here that this, yes, this does this, it does that, it does this, no, I don't feel this way about it, in terms of measuring how effective that the campaign is. So
Okay.
there's a variety of ways that you can do it.
Yeah. So let's say you're a small business owner and you're dealing with directly with the customers. What would a small business owner be able to do in the form of a focus group? How could they set that up? And
Well, for small business owners, one of the ways is that you could poll your friends and family,
uh-huh.
and that whatever your campaign is, you'd explain it to them and then get their reaction from it. And that's a very effective way of being able to do that, and do that without spending a lot of money, or not spending any money at all, really, if they're close
Hmm.
friends and family, to get their response.
Makes sense. Okay, great. So great ideas. So more on recession marketing, things we can do to prevent that from happening to our company,
Well, it's not preventing it from happening to our company, but it's
making it
a
resistant.
proactive approach
Uh-huh.
toward what you can do to stimulate your business, what you
Hmm.
can do to increase your floor traffic, or your your not showroom traffic, or your retail traffic that comes into your business. Of promoting. And now with the advent of really online marketing, being more and more effective all the time, is how is the best ways for you to do that. Should you be on YouTube? Should you
Mm.
Facebook? Um, it's depending upon where your target is, where your customer lives,
Hmm.
where they're spending their time is where you need to focus your efforts on. And so what happens is that during the time of recession resistant marketing, is that you you become a little bit more narrow in your focus of what your message is, of making sure that it's clear, concise, that it's something that you repeat frequently, regardless of the channels that you're in, regardless of which ways that you're going to market. If you're going to market online, on radio, TV, that message is the same
Hmm.
in those locations, that you want to continue to do that. And then you also want to test your marketing, to go back and see, did it actually move the needle? Did you
Mm.
actually increase the number of clicks? What were your KPIs? You know, um, so those are the types of things that you need to do and measure how effective the campaign is.
That makes sense. So you want to narrow your sites. You want to focus in on the areas that people are really looking for some type of a service or product, or a refined version of your service or product. But that's something that we need to get really clear on, not just be advertising to the universe, as we
Right.
mentioned earlier. Hmm.
And also in your messaging, simplicity is key.
Hmm.
The more that you can, get your sales messaging in a short sound bite, the more effective that it can be for you. Because
Hmm.
we just our lifestyles now, we are moving 1,000 miles an hour. We're
Hmm.
getting messages sent to us all around us throughout the day at just at a rapid rate. So how do you break through that? And you break through that by making it concise, simple. Um, you want to make it visually appealing.
Hmm.
You want to make it memorable so that you remember, and then you also want it to be consistent.
Hmm. So, Mark, let me ask you this. When it comes to that consumer that's out there, and yes, we are bombarded by messages all day long, everything from something on our iPhone to an advertisement on the expressway we're driving along to who knows what. How many actual touches does it take for that message to reach your client to the and get them to the point where they're willing to purchase something from you? Are there any numbers on that or?
That's uh, that's an excellent question, and I don't know the exact number, but trust me, it's not one.
Mm, mm,
That I think a lot of times, that particularly people newly getting into business and or newly into advertising,
mm-hmm,
is thinking that everybody's hearing their message that one or two times, and
hmm,
that's just not the case.
mm,
But that's why you have to look for ways of who's your target audience. Are they radio listeners? Do you have budget enough to be on television? You know, what time of night can you be on to really hit the masses that you're trying to hit? If they're online, so you want to know where they are, and then you want to just have a consistent message that you're consistent with. You want to continue to go after.
mm,
Multiple times you need to hear a message for it to register for you. I know for
gotcha.
me, for example, I'm even being in the business, is that I need to hear it a few times before it. Oh, you know what? I think I want to try that, and it's
Mm-hmm,
been after I probably have seen it 12 times.
mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's important. People need to realize that when they are marketing to their potential clients or customers out there, they have to be consistent and they have to be persistent. Keep on doing it over a period of time and keep it simple, as you were saying as well.
That's right.
Okay, this makes sense. Well, Mark, we're just about out of time, but if there was one thing you wanted our viewing audience to remember here today about marketing, what would that be?
Don't put your head in the sand when things get tough, and that put together a plan to get you where you want to go, and reach out to consultants or somebody that you can talk with, that's a professional that can help guide you through the process.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, I think we've just touched the tip of the iceberg here today. So we're going to have you back on this program and like to dive into more of the things that you can talk about that our listeners can learn from and how it will have an impact on their business. In the meantime, what's the best way for people that are viewing this program to get a hold of you? I'll put it up on the screen, but if they're just listening, how is the best way to reach your company?
You can, first of all, please check out our website at advantageci.com. And I can be reached at mperry@advantageci.com. Drop me an email and I'll answer it, and we can go from there. And Tom, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of the Business Builders podcast. You're always a fun person to talk with, and inspiring as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. I'm looking forward to having you back.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.